You're standing next to a huge floor-to-ceiling window of the spaceship/wandering city you've been calling your home for a dozen years, along with a few hundred other people. You're watching a fascinating object nearing your spaceship, wondering if it'll bring an end to this journey and your life. It looks like an asteroid, but acts like a comet, moving as if something is pushing it. Can it be the engine created by another space civilization? Are you doomed, or are you about to have contact with a different kind of intelligence? Now, let's leave this post-apocalyptic fantasy and take a closer look at these space invaders called dark comets. The most intriguing question is obviously, what makes them move? Most likely it's some gas or material escaping from the surface of these space objects. Interestingly, until recently, no one has even been sure they existed. The first dark comet was discovered just a few years ago, and since then, researchers have identified 14 of them, including 7 new ones found just recently. The story of dark comets began in 2016, when scientists noticed something strange about an asteroid called 2003 RM. Its orbit wasn't quite what they expected. It had shifted slightly, and no one could explain that shift by typical asteroid behavior, when they received tiny pushes caused by sunlight heating an asteroid unevenly. Instead, the movement suggested that 2003 RM might have been releasing material, something comets often do. But there was a catch. The thing didn't look like a comet. There was no tail, no visible gas cloud. It was just a tiny dot of light, like a regular asteroid. At first, scientists thought 2003 RM was just a one-off mystery. But in 2017, a telescope spotted another strange object, this one from outside our solar system. It was Oumuamua. It too looked like an asteroid, but had a path that changed as if gas were escaping from it. The similarities between Oumuamua and 2003 RM made researchers think there might be more of such odd objects out there. By 2023, 7 more had been discovered in our solar system. These discoveries were enough to give this new type of object the name of dark comets. Now, scientists have enough data to start noticing patterns and learning more about their characteristics. And so, they have identified 2 main groups of dark comets. The first group, called outer dark comets, is larger, with sizes ranging from hundreds of feet to even more. They follow long elliptical orbits, similar to traditional comets that come from regions near Jupiter. The second group, inner dark comets, is smaller, usually tens of feet across. These comets move in almost circular orbits and stay closer to the Sun, near planets like Earth, Venus, and Mars. The main question these days is, where do dark comets come from? Can they be the remnants of larger bodies that broke apart? These space bodies could help us understand the history of the solar system. What if they had delivered the ingredients for life to early Earth? Once we study dark comets better, we might figure out if they contain materials like ice or organic compounds. And indeed, some researchers are sure that dark comets may contain or once have contained ice and played a big role in bringing water to Earth. According to a couple of studies, some asteroids in the asteroid belt, a region between Mars and Jupiter filled with rocky debris, might have ice beneath their surfaces, and this ice from the asteroid belt could have traveled into near-Earth space. In other words, it could be a pathway for water to reach our planet. So far, no one is saying that dark comets definitely brought water to Earth, but they might be another mechanism for moving ice from one part of the solar system to another. The study also hints at a connection between dark comets and a group known as Jupiter family comets. These are comets whose orbits are strongly influenced by the gravity of Jupiter, often pulling them inward toward the Sun. This connection makes it even more difficult to understand where dark comets come from and how they behave. Now, let's take a closer look at the differences between asteroids and comets. Traditional asteroids are rocky bodies that orbit relatively close to the Sun, typically within the ice line. This region is so close to the Sun that any ice on an asteroid surface would turn directly from a solid into a gas, leaving behind only rock. Comets, in turn, are icy bodies that form farther from the Sun. When they approach the inner solar system, their ice starts turning from a solid to a gas too, creating a visible cloud called a coma or a tail while releasing dust and gas. Dark comets blur these definitions. They appear as rocky asteroid objects without a coma or tail, but they have behavior typical of comets, and that's small non-gravitational accelerations. These accelerations occur when ice turns into gas, giving the object a slight push. After analyzing 7 known dark comets, astronomers estimated that between 0.5% and 60% of all near-Earth objects might belong to this mysterious category. And since dark comets likely come from the asteroid belt, ice is likely to exist even in the regions of the belt previously thought to be too warm. Now, near-Earth objects like dark comets don't stay in the same orbit forever. The near-Earth environment is unstable, and objects typically remain there for about 10 million years. Since the solar system is over 4.5 billion years old, this means that new near-Earth objects must constantly replace those that are lost. Now, astronomers have used computer models to simulate the movement of objects under the influence of non-gravitational accelerations. They've traced the paths of these objects over a span of 100,000 years and discovered that many ended up in the same regions where we find dark comets today. Now, do you remember that space rock 2003 RM, which was the first to be called a dark comet? Well, it provided a particularly interesting clue. Its elliptical orbit brings it close to Earth, then out near Jupiter, before returning to Earth again. This trajectory matches what scientists would expect from a Jupiter family comet, an object that was likely knocked inward from its original orbit. Most of the other dark comets studied, however, seem to have come from the inner regions of the asteroid belt, closer to Mars. Dark comets are often small and spin rapidly. Astronomers often describe them as dirty ice cubes, all because these objects are a mix of rock and ice, and when they cross the ice line, their ice begins to turn into gas. This process not only causes those small non-gravitational accelerations, but also increases their spin rate. And the faster these objects spin, the easier they can break apart into smaller fragments. The pieces that break off also have ice, and as they spin faster and faster, they break into even smaller pieces. This process continues until you're left with very small, fast-spinning objects. This cycle of fragmentation helps explain why dark comets are often so tiny, but it could also mean there are more of them than we currently know about. The dark comet research provides new insights into the distribution of ice in the solar system and its potential pathways into the near-Earth environment. It also raises intriguing questions. For example, how much ice remains hidden in the asteroid belt? Or could dark comets have played a role in delivering water or organic materials to Earth? One of the most important points is that dark comets may represent a significant part of near-Earth objects. If it turns out to be true, it could mean that our understanding of the population of near-Earth objects and their potential risks for our planet is far from complete. The processes shaping dark comets, from sublimation to fragmentation, could be a major factor in the evolution of icy bodies throughout the solar system. Luckily, these days, scientists have an opportunity to combine advanced modeling with observations, which can eventually shed light on that very elusive class of objects that could have clues to the history of water and life on Earth. Our solar system is full of mysterious objects that come from, well, everywhere. In October 2017, researchers in Hawaii spotted a mysterious thing that they dubbed Oumuamua. This means a visitor from a faraway land in Hawaiian, or "that's a really big cow." It followed an escape orbit. It literally escaped from its planet's gravitational pull, like throwing a ball into space, never to return. This meant that this weird thing arrived from somewhere outside of our solar system. There were tons of theories about what it was, from a simple asteroid to an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Scientists even thought it was a chunk of nitrogen ice from a Pluto-like planet. Its strange shape only added to the mystery. The big changes in the light curves showed that this thing could be either elongated like a tube or more flat like a pancake. This thing was unlike anything we've seen before. Oumuamua didn't behave exactly like a comet or an asteroid. Comets are icy and form bright tails when they pass near the sun, while asteroids are basically just rocks and don't form tails. Oumuamua has no tail and doesn't release gas, like me. But it's not your average rock either. Its surface is very shiny, almost like polished metal. When it passed by the sun, it sped up, like it had a rocket on it. And it wasn't the sun's gravity that gave Oumuamua the sudden boost. Scientists aren't sure what caused it. So, what in the world was that thing? After years of study, scientists now think that Oumuamua is probably a comet with frozen hydrogen on its surface. This hydrogen reacted with sunlight, speeding up the comet and changing its path. Oumuamua likely got all that hydrogen from being exposed to tons of cosmic rays for a long time. It got some nice red tint from them as well. Oumuamua was a visitor from a young, chaotic solar system where collisions and migrations happen all the time. Such systems often toss many small objects around. It might have been pushed out by a planet like Jupiter, whose gravity is so insanely strong that it can fling huge things into outer space. The same thing often happens with comets here. Oumuamua already left our solar system, although similar objects visit us sometimes, about once per year. To learn more about these mysterious guests, astronomers plan to send a probe to chase Oumuamua. We'll use Earth's and Jupiter's orbits to slingshot it fast enough to catch up with the comet. But some of the unexpected visitors stayed a bit longer. In October 2019, NASA's Hubble Space Telescope took a picture of a bluish comet trailing dust and gas. It was already in the solar system at the time, around 260 million miles away from Earth, somewhere between Mars and Jupiter. We saw the glowing dust surrounding it, but we couldn't yet see its nucleus since it's way too small. Well, small is relative here. The thing is about 3,200 feet across, which is like the length of 9 football fields. In March 2020, Hubble images showed that a small fragment of the comet broke away from the nucleus. That means that the comet is very active, unlike Oumuamua. As we observed it further, we found that the nucleus is a loose mix of ice and dust particles. Its surface is also very similar to others, with rough areas and smooth blankets of icy, dusty debris. The comet was discovered by an amateur astronomer, Gennady Borisov, so it got the name Comet 2I Borisov. Congratulations! Scientists quickly confirmed it came to us from outside our solar system. And this thing sure was an enthusiastic tourist. It traveled at a breakneck speed of about 110,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to circle the Earth 4 times in just 1 hour. This visit was fascinating for several reasons. Most comets in our solar system come from the Kuiper Belt or the Oort cloud. The Kuiper Belt is a region of space beyond the orbit of Neptune. It's like a big, distant ring around the Sun, filled with many small, icy objects. All of them are ancient leftover pieces from the time when our solar system was still very young. The Oort cloud is much farther. It's like a giant bubble around the solar system, also filled with super old icy objects. Most long-period comets come from there. But where did the comet 2I Borisov come from? We still don't know for sure. Scientists say that it likely formed in another star system, which could be either younger or older than our solar system. Would be weird if there was a third option, NASA. Anyway, it might have been kicked out from its home system, just like Oumuamua. Although Comet 2I Borisov is too small to hold on to its own atmosphere, it developed a coma when it approached the Sun. Now, coma is a funny name for that beautiful glowing cloud of gas and dust that surrounds the comet's nucleus. It forms when the Sun's heat causes the comet's ice to vaporize, releasing dust and gas into space. This one was friendlier than Oumuamua and gave us some more time to study it. As a result, we learned more about its cool, unique traits. For example, it had never interacted with another star. But, unfortunately, Borisov had to leave too. Now it's on a path that will take it back into interstellar space. However, there are many more visitors to come, and you might have heard of this one. The Great Comet of 1996. That's what we call the Comet Hyakutake. It was also named after the astronomer who discovered it, Yuji Hyakutake. In a beautiful coincidence, it was discovered on New Year's Eve. On March 25, 1996, this thing passed by incredibly close to Earth, only about 0.1 astronomical units away, a bit farther than the Moon. It passed over the North Pole. This made it one of the closest comet encounters in 200 years. It was visible worldwide, and it looked very bright and beautiful in the sky, stretching out widely. And it didn't stay for one night only. It got more and more visible during March, becoming one of the brightest objects in the night sky by the end of the month. The comet only fully faded by the end of May. It's a long-period comet, which means it takes hundreds of years to orbit the Sun. The last time it visited was about 17,000 years ago, and now its orbital period increased to 70,000 years. But don't be upset, there are other comets that will brighten our days and nights. Besides, some space objects prefer to stay around for longer. Now, there's this asteroid with a multisyllabic name that, to pronounce, is above my pay grade. This name in Hawaiian means the mischievous one of Jupiter. Luckily, scientists had mercy on us and dubbed it BZ. Hey, speaking for all the other narrators, thank you. It's a small asteroid, only about 1.8 miles in diameter. You can guess from the name that it shares an orbit with Jupiter. But there's a cool catch. The asteroid moves in the opposite direction, which is known as a retrograde orbit. The unusual asteroid was discovered on November 2014. It orbits the Sun for about 11 years and 8 months, sometimes passing inside and outside of Jupiter's orbit. It's been this way for at least 1 million years, and it will remain so for about 1 million more. But why does it move so unusually? BZ might actually be an interstellar immigrant. Perhaps it passed by our solar system about 4.5 billion years ago, around the time when the Sun was just forming. Then it got captured by gravity, but saved its opposite orbit. Or maybe it came from the Oort cloud. Then it could get its weird orbit from the mysterious planet 9, a hypothetical planet that's believed to exist in our solar system far beyond Jupiter. In any case, this asteroid gives us more insight into the history of the solar system and how organic materials can travel to us from outer space. Now, at any given time, there are thousands of objects in our solar system that come from outer space. They stay here for different lengths of time, but sometimes we get lucky, and they end up teaching us a lot about interstellar space.
What if some of the brightest minds in Europe believed they had been chosen to receive messages from aliens? In the 1960s, a group of intellectuals in Spain was convinced that beings from the planet UMMO were reaching out to them, and the story only gets stranger from there. 1960s Spain was a breeding ground for what is known as the UFO fever, which had reached its peak in the United States during the 1950s with the Roswell incident. If you're not familiar with this famous case, we have a full video on our channel about it. The Spanish fever began with a UFO sighting, one that had been announced in advance, by letter. Yes, you heard that right. Days before the flying saucers appeared, Fernando Sesma, founder of the Society of Friends of the Space Visitors, received a series of strange typewritten letters. At first glance, they seemed ordinary, formal, precise, but as he read, he realized something astonishing. The letters claimed to come from extraterrestrial beings. Their authors introduced themselves as the Umetes, inhabitants of a planet called UMMO, supposedly located in the Virgo constellation, 14 light-years away. They described their deep interest in studying humans, but assured they had no intention of interfering with Earth's development. Then came the most shocking revelation: a specific date, location, and time when they would make their presence known. It wasn't just a cryptic message, it was a prediction of an imminent UFO sighting. Sesma and his group of space enthusiasts held meetings in the basement of Café Lyon, a space frequently visited by intellectuals of the time. There, beneath a mural of a smiling whale, they discussed topics such as spiritualism, the occult, symbolism, and, of course, extraterrestrials. The messages Sesma received from the Umetes were shared at these gatherings. It was in one of these letters that announced their intention to make themselves visible. The Umetes flying saucers reportedly made 3 appearances. The first in 1950 near Digne, followed by sightings in Aluche in 1966 and San Jose de Valderas in 1967. The second sighting was witnessed by Jose Luis Jordan Peña, a researcher of parapsychology and ufology, as well as a journalist and contributor to paranormal magazines. Curiously, he was the one who claimed to have seen the flying saucer firsthand. Adding to the mystery, traces were allegedly found at the supposed landing site. A year later, the second sighting was documented in photographs taken by regular attendees of the Smiling Whale meetings. The images showed a spacecraft marked with the distinctive UMMO symbol on its base, further fueling speculation. Beyond these sightings, the UMITES' letters stood out for their sophistication. Addressed to experts and academics, they explored complex topics such as philosophy, technology, and scientific advancements in physics, electronics, and computational theory. Over 200 of these documents, supposedly written by aliens, remain accessible on the website ummociencias.org. Among the letters available online, some feature colorful illustrated explanations, while others provide detailed insights into UMMO's customs and traditions. Some go even further, questioning Earth's global power structures, promoting peace, and offering recommendations on how to build a better world, according to their extraterrestrial perspective. The UMMO phenomenon didn't stay confined to letters and sightings. It spread across multiple countries and languages, gaining unexpected traction in the media. The extensive coverage led to an unusual level of public acceptance, turning the UMMO affair into a widespread fascination. Even politics capitalized on the UFO craze. In 1989, at the height of Cold War tensions, the Soviet Union was allegedly visited by an UMIT flying saucer in the city park of Voronezh. Several children claimed to have witnessed humanoid beings emerging from the craft, a story that quickly made headlines. Whether genuine or not, the incident conveniently aligned with a growing global obsession with extraterrestrial life. Its impact on politics, media, and intellectual circles was undeniable. But in 1993, the mastermind behind it all finally spoke. José Luis Jordan Peña publicly admitted that he had fabricated the entire story to bring complex debates to the scientific community. He also described it as a social experiment that had spiraled out of control, prompting him to put an end to it. You're probably wondering, what did he mean by spiraled out of control? Well, the UMMO phenomenon was also exploited for sinister purposes by depraved cults, such as Edelweiss, a sect of fanatics who lured minors under the pretense of being extraterrestrial princes. This horrifying case was one of the main reasons Jordan Peña decided to reveal the truth about his writings. He admitted to using a voice distortion device to create a metallic resonance during phone calls and revealed that he wrote the letters on weekends, sending them from different locations during his travels. However, given the vast number of letters and their global reach, it's unlikely that he acted alone. Many of his explanations also remain frustratingly vague for UMITE believers, who refuse to accept that Jordan Peña was solely responsible for all UMMO communications. Even today, messages from UMMO continue to appear on X and other media. Was it all just a hoax that spiraled out of control, or is someone, human or otherwise, still keeping the myth alive?
Some people, like the Andaman Islanders, that's a community living in the Gulf of Bengal, see them as burning torches thrown into the air by forest spirits. Others, like some Australian Aborigines, think they're flaming sticks ridden by shamans. If you ask an astronomer, though, they'll tell you that a comet is a large object made of dust and ice that orbits the sun. Arguably one of the most famous space objects of this kind is Halley's Comet. It has left a great impact on our history and understanding of these mysterious falling stars. When this comet passed Earth in August of 1835, for example, it was blamed for the New York City fire that kept going for several nights. At the same time, the Seminole Indians in Florida saw the comet's long tail and believed it marked the day they would lose their independence. This comet came back in 1910, and people yet again saw it as a sign of bad luck. In Chicago, people bent over backward to secure their windows to protect themselves from the comet's dangerous tail. Others bought all sorts of gadgets, like umbrellas or masks protecting from comets. But what's so intriguing about this space body? How come it just pops up around Earth every once in a while? And, most importantly, is it really dangerous? Halley's is what astronomers call a periodic comet. It visits us every 75 years or so. On rare occasions, some lucky people get to see it twice in their lifetime. It last passed Earth in 1986, and it is expected to come back in 2061. Despite this scheduled return, the comet's orbit can't be predicted with precision. That's partly because of the chemical processes happening inside the comet. Halley's orbit may also change due to random interactions with other planets and space objects in our solar system. Its official title is 1P/Halley, and it's named after English astronomer Edmund Halley. He was the one who studied the reports of a comet nearing Earth in 1531, 1607, and 1682. Based on his calculations, he concluded that these three occurrences had been, in fact, the same comet, returning over and over again. He also predicted its return in 1758. Halley's discovery also pointed out that some comets, like this one, orbited the Sun, but their journey was not circular. If you look at it in 2D, Halley's orbit looks like an elliptical wire dangling from the Sun. Sadly, Halley didn't live to see the comet's correctly predicted return, but it was named after him. According to the European Space Agency, the first sighting of Halley's comet dates back to March 30th, 239 BCE. Asian astronomers noted it down in the Sheqi and Wenxian Thungkao chronicles. But another study claims that we might have first noticed it even earlier than that, during the times of the ancient Greeks. Writings from that period reported a huge meteor that landed in northern Greece, leaving the local population perplexed. It soon became one of the ancient world's most popular tourist attractions. But the authors also noticed a comet in the sky at the time the meteor landed. They also reported the fact that the unusual space object had remained in the sky for about 75 days. Shakespeare himself seems to have written about this comet in his play Julius Caesar around the year 1600. In this work, he included a now famous phrase speaking of comets as unusual signs, saying, "The heavens themselves blaze forth." It wasn't the last time famous writers felt a certain connection with this object. Writer Mark Twain even said in 1909, "I came in with Halley's Comet in 1835. It is coming again next year, and I expect to go out with it." Surprisingly, Twain passed away on April 21st, 1910, one day after Halley's had emerged from behind the far side of the Sun. We got a better look at the comet when it last passed us in 1986. Several spacecraft were sent toward Halley's to take samples of the comet's composition. This fleet of spaceships, dubbed the Halley Armada, flew nearby, one of them taking several pictures of the comet's core for the first time in history. We also had much better telescopes to look at the comet as it swung by our planet this time. Based on current studies, there's little to no chance that Halley's Comet could actually pose any danger to our planet. Most of the bad things associated with the comet were just fabrications. Even better, comets, in general, may have made life on Earth possible. Specialists believe that early in our planet's history, collisions with comets brought a significant amount of water here, which helped to form our oceans. These space objects may have also gifted us organic material necessary for the formation of life. Don't confuse comets with asteroids, though. Unlike asteroids, which are small rocky space bodies also orbiting the Sun, comets are mostly made up of frozen ammonia, methane, or water. They contain only small amounts of rocky material. Because of their composition, comets are sometimes nicknamed dirty snowballs. Comets are made of 4 parts: a nucleus, a coma, a dust tail, and an ion tail. But their nucleus makes up most of their total mass. There are over 3,000 comets that we know of, but astronomers think there may be up to 1 billion of them in our solar system. A comet that is bright enough to be visible from Earth without the help of a telescope is called a great comet. Approximately 1 great comet can be seen every 10 years or so. People have noticed other comets for millennia. However, scientists have concluded that since comets shed a lot of material each time they orbit close to the Sun, their lifespan may be only thousands of years. If you compare that to the age of the solar system, which is 4.6 billion years, it's a relatively small number. Since these space bodies are still present in the solar system today, there must be a source of comets somewhere out there. Otherwise, all comets would have disappeared a long time ago. Another famous comet is named Hale-Bopp. It came very close to Earth in January 1997. The last time it was seen near our planet before that was during the Bronze Age, back in 2000 BCE. This comet is much larger and more spectacular than Halley's. Its nucleus stretches for up to 24 miles in diameter and can be seen from the surface of our planet with the unaided eye. Comet Borrelly was the second comet to be studied up close by a spacecraft. NASA's Deep Space One approached it in 2001 and gave scientists a detailed report of the comet's black core. This comet is surprisingly lopsided, but the reason for its unusual shape is still up for debate. Halley's comet appears to have formed in the Oort cloud at the outer edges of the solar system, but Borrelly is said to come from an icy cloud of rocks beyond Neptune, which is called the Kuiper Belt. Comet Hyakutake gave us quite the show when it passed just 9.3 million miles from Earth in March 1996. It looked like an ice blue splash with a faint gas tail. This comet amazed astronomers too, as it produced X-rays 100 times more intense than scientists had predicted. A spaceship called Ulysses passed through Hyakutake's tail in May 1996, reporting that it was at least 350 million miles long. That's double the size of any other known comet's tail. The comet Wild 2 was examined by NASA's Stardust spacecraft back in 2004. The probe managed to fly within 147 miles of the nucleus of Wild 2, giving us some of the best comet pictures to date. It was also the first time we got samples of dust particles from a comet. The precious cargo came back to Earth in January 2006. Its aim was to shed light on the conditions under which Wild 2, and the solar system for that matter, formed those billions of years ago. Wild 2 is about 3 miles in diameter and covered with craters and cliffs.
Whoa! A wall of fire spreads around the epicenter of the impact. It burns everything in its path. The waves raised by the explosion cover large cities, and earthquakes are so strong that giant skyscrapers fall like a house of cards. So, these are the possible consequences of the collision with the first interstellar object in history to visit our solar system. We discovered it in 2017, but we're still not sure what it is: an asteroid, a comet, or a spaceship of some outer space civilization. So far, scientists have named it Oumuamua. Sounds like a Hawaiian cow. Well, whatever it is, its speed is much faster than other asteroids, about 54 miles per second. At that speed, you could cross the US from coast to coast in less than 3 minutes. So this asteroid could travel from Earth to the Sun in about 2 months. By comparison, our rockets can travel up to 17,000 miles per hour. The same trip across the United States would take them about 9 minutes. So many scientists speculate that this is an artificial object created by a very advanced civilization. Okay. The shape of the object supports this theory. It's long and narrow and resembles a spaceship. It's about half a mile long, way bigger than the Eiffel Tower. Scientists decided to see if Oumuamua was really someone's spaceship and pointed some radio telescopes at it. If the civilization on that ship had used communication or scanned us with their tech, we would have known about it. But there was complete silence. Kind of like that. Not a single radio wave. But that doesn't disprove the theory of outer space civilization. To find out for sure, we decided to determine the weight of the object. To do that, we use light. More precisely, its reflection. You see, different materials reflect light differently. We take an unknown black stone, for example. It absorbs almost all the light, reflecting almost nothing. Check out the catalog, it's charcoal. Knowing the size and material of the object, we can determine its weight. So, we need to see how much light this object reflects. And when scientists pointed their telescopes at Oumuamua, they learned that it reflects colors that match with iron and also with some solid rocks. And Oumuamua was flashing all the time, a bright flash. Then it would slowly fade, and then it would start to shine again. This means it was spinning. And it wasn't going around its axis like an arrow. It rotated chaotically, moving its edges up and down. Any artificial object or spacecraft would have been torn apart by such overloads. But Oumuamua is still intact. That means it's made of super hard materials that keep it from falling apart. And it's not hollow like a spaceship. It's one solid body. Hey, like me. The astounding speed of this object makes it pretty mysterious. Some comets can have the same or even higher speed, but they also have a kind of rocket effect. So when a spaceship starts from the launch pad, you see fire bursting out of its engines. Every second, the rocket mixes fuel with oxygen, ignites them, and ejects them at a tremendous speed. According to the laws of physics, this is like pushing off a wall. The rocket sort of jumps up from the combustion gases it throws down. That's how the rocket creates thrust and accelerates. Comets work on a similar principle. The sun's rays hit the surface of the comet. Light elements like ice start to evaporate. That gas goes one way, the comet goes the other. Just like a rocket, the comet is pushing off the evaporating gas and accelerates. This gas also forms the comet's long tail. It's as if the massive rock is dragging all this gas behind it. I can relate. Or it's like a car pulls air with it when it goes at high speed. But Oumuamua is not a comet, and it doesn't have that tail, and it doesn't have the same rocket effect as a comet. So it couldn't have accelerated to that speed. But some scientists believe that Oumuamua used to have a tail. Although we discovered it in 2017, it entered our solar system in 1995, and it was hit by the sun's rays even back then. When we discovered this asteroid, it had already lost about 95% of its mass. It simply evaporated. Other scientists believe that Oumuamua got this velocity during its birth, somewhere far away in another star system or nebula. Perhaps it was a dramatic collision of some exoplanet with another cosmic object. The colossal explosive energy of the collision threw the elongated shard into outer space. Or it could have been a supernova explosion. When a star reaches the end of its lifespan, it becomes a red giant. It's an inflated version of the star, hundreds of times bigger. Then it shrinks and explodes with tremendous force. The blast waves can travel many light years away from the epicenter, and it's one of the brightest events in the universe. So the supernova might have torn some exoplanet to pieces. One of them, Oumuamua, gained a lot of energy and speed and began its long journey toward Earth. This might explain why Oumuamua keeps spinning so wildly. But recently, scientists published a theory that Oumuamua may be a giant block of ice. The kind of ice we're used to is water, H2O, but Oumuamua could be nitrogen ice, N2. It may have remained intact in interstellar space for 500 million years. And when it arrived in our solar system, nitrogen ice could have reflected 2/3 of the sun's rays, so it didn't heat up as much. That explains why Oumuamua doesn't have a tail. You can find the same nitrogen ice on Pluto, as well as on Triton, one of Neptune's moons. So Oumuamua comes from a similar icy exoplanet. But we can find out for sure only by sending a space probe to it. Scientists came up with a plan for that called Project Lyra. The problem is that Oumuamua is leaving our solar system at tremendous speeds, much faster than our rockets can fly. And we need to catch up with this space rock as quickly as possible before it gets too far away. To do this, we can use a gravity maneuver. First, the space probe makes a flyby of Jupiter. It passes close to it to take advantage of its gravity to accelerate. After that, the probe will head towards the Sun, and it'll fly around it as close as possible to fire like a catapult towards the space rock. The second option for reaching the asteroid is to use microprobes. We have to launch about 1,000 of them into orbit. They should be no heavier than a match. Each of them will have a light sail the size of a boxing ring. Then we'll focus a powerful laser beam from the ground onto this sail. It will allow us to accelerate the probe to about 20% of the speed of light. It shouldn't go too fast not to fly past the asteroid. It should be able to enter its orbit or land on it. But if we're too slow, Oumuamua will leave our solar system before we can catch up with it. It'll be a great experience because in the future, we'll be able to use such asteroids as a space taxi. All we have to do is enter the orbit of such an interstellar asteroid or even land on it. Then we would keep moving through space at incredible speeds without using any fuel at all. This would be a great option for traveling long distances or to deliver supplies to other star systems. So why should we be afraid of such objects? Well, a collision with an asteroid the size of Oumuamua could wipe out an entire state. If it were to hit somewhere in the ocean, it could cause waves taller than our skyscrapers. Scientists are anxious to find ways to protect us against such objects. One of them is ramming. If we spot a potentially hazardous object, we could send a spaceship towards it, pedal to the metal. The spacecraft will have to ram the asteroid at an angle that will move its trajectory just a little bit. Moving it too much on a cosmic scale would only dramatically change the asteroid's final destination, and we only need to get the asteroid past our planet. We can also create a controlled explosion on the asteroid. It's based on the same principle. The force of the explosion would have to shift the trajectory of the asteroid slightly, or smash a giant rock into smaller pieces. Asteroids up to 80 feet wide would burn up completely in our atmosphere due to friction against the air. Rocks between 80 feet and half a mile in size may not burn up completely and cause local damage. Anything larger is considered very hazardous. You think? The traditional method of science fiction is to put rocket engines on the asteroid. Then we can not only change the trajectory of the space rock, but also control it. And we can use it against other asteroids. It would be something like space billiards.
A sound from space? When up there in space, no one can hear you talk, laugh, or scream. Or at least that's how the saying goes. People can't hear anything in space due to its condition. Still, if you have the right conditions, like the hot gas that surrounds the black hole located at the center of Perseus, space can be quite noisy. That's the galaxy cluster 250 million light-years away from us. Researchers caught an actual sound of space, waves rippling through the plasma gas in Perseus. They first realized black holes generate acoustic signals in 2003, but this is the first time they brought these signals to the human ear, and wow, this sounds terrifying. Canyons filled with liquid on Titan. Almost a decade ago, NASA spacecraft discovered deep canyons on one of Saturn's moons, Titan. They're about a half-mile wide and they kinda look like the Grand Canyon, but they're filled with liquid hydrocarbon. This was the first time we came upon evidence of canyons and channels filled with liquid on Titan. Our solar system is full of small particles and bigger rocks that circle the sun, the same way as planets. Sometimes it happens, some of them change trajectory, which is why falling pieces of debris strike the planets. Most of the meteorites and comets originate in our solar system. Some from the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars, while others come from the Kuiper belt, that's located beyond the orbit of Neptune. But 5 years ago, scientists found something unusual, a red, elongated floating space rock called Oumuamua. It could be more than 3,000 feet long, but its size still wasn't the most impressive part. It was the first interstellar object we saw passing through our solar system. It means it formed and came outside of it. It was traveling way faster than asteroids and comets from within our solar system. No one knows where this weird object came from. Many, many years ago, when it started its journey and sailed away from its parent planetary system, the stars weren't in the same position as they are today, so it's hard to pinpoint where Oumuamua ran away from. The rock could have been on its journey for billions of years. Solar termination events. Our sun is not just a flaming ball of gas we see in the sky. It's actually a pretty complex network of towering plasma fountains, magnetic fields, and blobs of unusual matter 500 times bigger than our own planet. And then there are solar termination events. When it comes to its activity, our sun goes through a natural cycle of troughs and peaks. Approximately every 11 years comes the time when the sun is more active than in other periods of the process. As the cycle goes to the end, there are fewer emissions and sunspots. That's because magnetic fields are weakened at that point, and they collide along the sun's equator. This results in enormous tsunamis of plasma. They pass across the solar surface for weeks. These are the most powerful storms in our solar system. They twist, snap, and lash out into space and seriously affect our power grid. As they wake, large spots start to form on the sun, close to strong magnetic field lines. Usually, that's when the cycle begins all over again. No one still knows why exactly they form. Also, we're not sure if this only happens at the end of the cycle, and knowing more about this could help us prepare for raging solar storms better. Tsunamis on Mars. It appears the shorelines under the Martian surface formed because of two enormous tsunamis. Mars has something that's probably the longest landslide in our entire solar system. The rocks rolled down the mountain probably billions of years ago. They fell into the water and caused a gigantic wave that rushed across the Martian landscape. As the tsunami was getting bigger, the rocks scraped all along the solid ground beneath them, and these sandy waves left their prints on the shoreline, not so close to Olympus Mons. That means it's possible the waves traveled a couple of hundred miles. This supports the theory that Mars once had an ocean hidden below its dry desert surface. Sure, Oumuamua was cool because it was the first object we've seen coming from outside of our solar system. It's past us now, so it's not possible to study it anymore. But something else came from outside our solar system after Oumuamua. A comet called Borisov. It came with a tail over 100,000 miles long. Teams got the first images of Borisov in 2019. A bright white glow was surrounding it. And that was one of the first signs where scientists realized this comet wasn't from our solar system. They tried to collect as much information as possible because they remembered how quickly Oumuamua got away. Borisov came from a freezing place as cold as the Kuiper Belt. One theory says it may have originated around a red dwarf, which is the most common type of star in our galaxy, the Milky Way. But unfortunately, Borisov was also very fast. So fast that they only managed to see it a couple of weeks before it passed by our planet. By now, it's almost out of our solar system. Finding new planets is always such a thrill, just like it was in 2017, when a group of researchers discovered Super-Earth. It's an exoplanet, which means it orbits a star outside of our solar system. This one has a mass almost 3 times that of our planet, and it's only 21 light-years away. It orbits M dwarf star, and it manages to make a full circle in only 2 weeks. So that's how long the year is on this planet. It's closer to its star than Mercury is to our sun. But M dwarf stars are cooler than our sun, so it's possible this planet still has water. Super-Earth is generally a term for planets that are lighter than ice giants such as Uranus and Neptune, yet more massive than Earth. They can be made of rock, gas, or even a combination of both. The one they discovered in 2017 is especially interesting because this type of planet can also hold some form of life. Leroy Chiao is an astronaut who commanded the International Space Station back in 2005. This one time, during his final spacewalk, some pretty unusual lights caught his eye. It looked like 5 lights flying near him. They were in the shape of a pyramid, since one light was a bit further ahead. Chiao immediately called one of the crew members who was also out there at the same time, taking a spacewalk. He asked his colleague if he saw the flying objects, but apparently he didn't. Researchers were intrigued by this story, so they examined satellite images to see if that was the thing Chiao saw. One of the options was that Chiao had seen fishing boats off the coast of South America. With bright lights, they wanted to attract squid. But since it was twilight time, the rotation of our planet may have made them appear to fly by. Neutron stars slamming into each other. After a massive star comes to its end in a strong supernova explosion, its core falls apart. Then it forms the densest form of matter we know about in the whole universe, called a neutron star. In only a couple of the first few seconds after a regular star begins transforming into a neutron star, the energy there is equal to the total amount of light all stars in the universe emit. At least the part we can observe, which is still a lot. It's hard to determine their real size, but picture it this way. The length of Manhattan with 1.5 times the mass of the Sun. If a star here were any denser, it would just collapse and form a black hole. Scientists captured 2 of these stars colliding a couple of years ago, and such impacts are extremely powerful. They create gravitational waves that lead to a ripple in space-time, but they produce heavy elements like platinum and gold.
In 2017, a strange object was spotted in our solar system. It had the shape of a long tube, similar to a pancake. No known asteroid or comet we've seen looks like that. Its exterior was also peculiar. It was at least 10 times more reflective than the average stuff that flies through space, with some saying it had a surface similar to polished metal. When it went past the Sun and left our reach, it accelerated faster than what our gravity could account for. At first glance, it was like this thing had a rocket strapped to its back. This unusual visitor even got a special name, Oumuamua. It comes from Hawaiian and translates to scout or visitor from a faraway land. And because of its characteristics, scientists soon began to wonder if this was at last a visit from otherworldly creatures. Before they went full-on with the science fiction suppositions, astronomers gathered the information they were sure about, starting with the fact that Oumuamua must have come from another solar system. There must have been some unfortunate event in its home system that led to its ejection. What they didn't know was that this was a comet or asteroid. They're both celestial objects orbiting a sun, but they have distinct compositions and behaviors. Comets are composed primarily of ice, dust, and rocky material, often referred to as dirty snowballs. When a comet approaches the Sun, the heat causes the ice to vaporize, releasing gas and dust particles into space. This creates a bright glowing tail that can extend for millions of miles. Comets generally have elliptical orbits, often taking them from the distant reaches of our solar system closer to the Sun. Asteroids, however, are mostly made of rock and metal. In our neighborhood, they are remnants of the early formation of the solar system and are typically found in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Unlike comets, asteroids do not develop tails when they approach the Sun, as they have no ice. Their orbits generally follow more circular paths compared to comets. By all accounts, Oumuamua should be a comet, because it seems to come from a different location in the universe. Yet, it doesn't exhibit the typical signs of cometary activity. Oumuamua lacks a tail and does not spew out gas as it passes by, not like me. Even though it behaves like a comet, it looks more like an asteroid. Now, another big question is how scientists even managed to spot Oumuamua in the first place. Considering the vastness of space and time in the galaxy, it's remarkable. Stars have lifetimes spanning millions or billions of years, and the formation of a solar system takes hundreds of millions of years. Even the fastest objects take tens of thousands of years to travel from one star to another. In contrast, humans have only been observing the skies with telescopes for around 400 years, a tiny fraction of cosmic time. And it's only in recent decades, even years, that we've had the technology to detect and track fast-moving, dim objects. Either rocks like these are abundant, or we've been incredibly lucky with our detections, or it's simply wanted to be seen. Now, another question that was asked was where such objects could come from. It's highly unlikely that Oumuamua came from a mature, stable solar system. That's because such systems don't eject enough material to fill up the galaxy. Occasionally, a random rock might get flung out, but it can rarely travel so far. Young systems, however, act differently. In these chaotic environments, collisions, mergers, and migrations are happening everywhere. Plenty of tiny rocks roam around, perfect candidates for ejection. The solar system that kicked Oumuamua out must have had a planet similar to Jupiter. Its massive size and gravity could influence other objects in the system, causing potential ejections. But not all solar systems develop Jupiter-sized planets. Often massive planets end up close to their stars, becoming hotter versions of Jupiter. These planets, snugly orbiting a sun, are less likely to eject debris. Now, Neptune-like planets may play a role too. While not as massive as Jupiter, they tend to call the outer regions of solar systems their home. Our solar system has the Kuiper Belt, a reservoir of comets in its outer reaches. During a solar system's early stages, interactions between Neptune-like planets and debris are common. Finding Neptune-like planets in other systems has been challenging, though. Our methods for detecting exoplanets work better for massive objects close to their stars, making it difficult to spot Neptune counterparts farther out. Oumuamua was also linked to a peculiar theory about how life came to be in the universe – panspermia. Now that's a hypothesis that suggests that life exists throughout the universe and can be distributed between planets by various means, such as asteroids, comets, or even spacecraft. It says that life must have originated in one location in the universe and then spread to other celestial bodies. Fans of the panspermia theory have suggested that such interstellar objects could potentially carry tiny microbes, those building blocks of life between star systems. If such objects were to impact a planet or a moon, they could transfer these materials and seed the celestial body with life. For now, there is no evidence to support the theory that this comet in particular has transported life between star systems. After years of research, the overall consensus became that Oumuamua was indeed a comet. The reason why it moves so strangely is because it might have frozen hydrogen on its surface that reacts when touched by sunlight. The closer it got to our sun, the faster it became, releasing that hydrogen and also changing its path through our solar system. Its color also supports this theory. It's red, which might mean it's been hit by cosmic rays for a long time. The longer it was touched by those rays, the more hydrogen it gathered in the process. But since they can't be completely sure, astronomers have a plan to follow this visitor. One idea is to send a mission to check it out. It's already far away from us, but it may not be too late just yet. We may be able to send a probe fast enough to catch up with the comet. The plan was named Project Lyra and aims to use the Earth's orbit and that of Jupiter to bounce out a probe far enough to reach Oumuamua. If it works, it will be the fastest space device we've sent out in the universe. One potential trajectory of the space probe involves the gravitational pull of our planet and that of Jupiter as a lasso effect, but not Ted Lasso. The probe will leave our planet and re-enter Earth's orbit before sending it to meet with Jupiter's pull. It will be sent back near our planet a second time, where it will be ejected with enough force to reach the comet. Project Lyra also aims to follow a second faraway visitor named Borisov. This one was discovered by an amateur astronomer and now bears his name. What's interesting about it is that it's, well, spotless. Similar to our experience with Oumuamua, we haven't seen anything like Borisov before either. Studies of the light coming from its cloud of dust and gas show it's very clean compared to other space objects. After it was first noticed in August 2019, astronomers studied its path through our solar system and concluded it came from another star too. But Borisov gave us more time to study it because we spotted it earlier in its journey through our neighborhood. Researchers used advanced telescopes to look at the dust coming off Borisov. They found it's throwing off over 400 pounds of dust every second. They also found Borisov has more carbon monoxide than comets from our solar system usually do. But the amount isn't the same everywhere on the comet. This tells us the space object probably started forming near its home star before moving away, maybe because of larger planets in its system. The light from Borisov is way more polarized than light from other comets we've seen, and its cloud is super smooth. This tells us Borisov has never interacted with another star.
J. Allen Hynek, an astrophysicist and ufologist, coined the term close encounter, or CE, in his book The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry, published in 1972. He defined a CE as experiences where a person witnesses an unidentified flying object at a relatively short distance, reducing the likelihood of perceptual errors. Hynek introduced a rigorous classification system widely recognized as the Hynek scale, and it's one of the most significant contributions to ufology. The classification includes 6 categories, but only 3 are considered close encounters. The distinction between distant and close encounters lies in the observer's proximity. Events occurring within 150 meters are classified as close. To better visualize the scale, think of it as a staircase, where each step brings us closer to the unknown. The first 3 steps of the classification involve phenomena observed at distances greater than 150 meters. Nocturnal lights refer to unusual lights observed at night, often red, blue, orange, or white, with unexpected movements or speeds. Daylight disks are objects seen during the day, typically disc-shaped or oval. Radar visual phenomena involve UAPs confirmed by radar, which, while adding credibility, can sometimes be attributed to atmospheric anomalies. Steps 4, 5, and 6 are classified as close encounters, made famous by Steven Spielberg's film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which references Hynek's work. A close encounter of the first kind involves sightings of strange flying objects within 150 meters. At this distance, observers can discern details that would be impossible to detect from farther away. Close encounters of the second kind are more unsettling and involve physical effects on the observer's surroundings, such as interference with devices, unusual animal behavior, or physiological effects like paralysis or heat. Evidence might include scorched vegetation, chemical traces, or other inexplicable marks. These incidents suggest that while the object might go unnoticed by the naked eye, its presence leaves a tangible impact. Finally, the 6th step involves the close encounters of the third kind, the most intriguing of all, involving direct interaction with beings from space. Hynek described these beings as animated entities, which could include robots, humanoids, or humans appearing to be UFO pilots. After Hynek's death, fellow researcher Jacques Vallée expanded the scale in his 90s book Confrontations, a scientist's search for alien contact, adding 2 more steps, which were quickly embraced by the community. These are the 4th kind and 5th kind. The close encounters of the 4th kind are known as abductions, and also include episodes of transformation of the sense of reality, such as vivid hallucinations or dreamlike episodes related to UFOs. This also inspired the title and content of the science fiction movie The Fourth Kind by Olatunde Osunsanmi. At the top of the staircase, we have the close encounters of the 5th kind. They occur when humans initiate contact with extraterrestrial beings, typically following specific protocols. Some interpret this step as involving physical effects from the encounter, such as injuries or unexplained healings. Over time, the 5th kind has become associated with direct communication between humans and aliens, emphasizing a mutual exchange. Now, this is no joke. Many individuals consider themselves contactees due to experiencing extraterrestrial encounters. Hynek described these contactees as recipients of messages of cosmic importance from usually benevolent beings. These beings often convey peaceful messages aimed at helping humanity resolve conflicts. Contactees often report recurring experiences and additional messages. From the 1940s to the 1960s, contactees became a cultural phenomenon, writing books and giving lectures. Skeptics often dismissed them as dishonest or influenced by false memories, hallucinations, or a lack of scientific understanding. Whether fact or fiction, contactees consistently describe aliens as humanoid beings delivering messages against violence, crime, and nuclear weapons. They portray them as striving to help humanity achieve peace and unity. Their reports often include men in black, mysterious figures allegedly working to suppress these messages. Sound familiar? It's no coincidence that this idea inspired the popular movie franchise. Have you ever experienced any of Hynek's steps, or heard a blood-chilling story from somebody close to you? Let us know in the comments. And if you're curious about why beings from other planets might be observing us, well, we have some videos about that too. It was the year 2015 when US Navy pilots flying training missions off the East Coast saw something truly eerie. They spotted oval-shaped objects moving quickly over the water. they seemed to rotate as they flew. At first, the pilots thought it was just one object, but soon they realized there were many of them, moving in unusual ways. These objects didn't look like normal aircraft. They didn't have visible engines, didn't produce exhaust, and didn't just hover near the sea like helicopters would. Some of them appeared at altitudes of 30,000 feet and were moving faster than the speed of sound. The strangest and scariest thing? The pilots had been observing similar objects almost every day for months. Mind you, those weren't rookie pilots. One of them was an experienced pilot with 10 years in the Navy. He, along with his fellow pilots, knew what typical aircraft looked like and how to stay calm under pressure. It wasn't until 2019 that the public heard about those sightings. That's when the New York Times published an article revealing them. The article included video footage taken by the pilot's plane cameras, which was later confirmed by the US Navy in April 2020. The Navy officially released the videos soon after. In recent years, sightings of UFOs, now called unexplained aerial phenomena, have been reported by other reliable sources as well. The US government has started to take these sightings seriously and has even brought in scientists to quietly investigate what might be behind them. So far, we still don't know exactly what the pilots and others have seen. But this growing scientific interest is pushing us closer to finding out more. While military pilots reporting UFOs might be a recent development, the public has been observing and reporting them for decades. In fact, the UFO craze in the US can be traced back to the summer of 1947. On June 14th of that year, a rancher discovered strange debris on his land near Roswell, New Mexico. At first, he thought it was from a kite. But even after looking through the bits of rubber, tinfoil, paper, and wood, he still couldn't make sense of it. The rancher then told the local sheriff about his find. And since his ranch was close to the Roswell Army airfield, the sheriff reported it to the military. Officers came to check it out and couldn't identify the wreckage either. The next day, the Army issued a press release saying that they had recovered the remains of a flying saucer. The local newspaper even ran a headline, "RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell." But just a few days later, the Army changed its story, claiming the debris was from a weather balloon. By then, though, the excitement over UFOs had already sparked, and UFO fever spread across the nation. Now, UFOs are real, in the sense that people have indeed seen objects they can't identify in the sky. But when people ask, are UFOs real? They usually mean, are we being visited by aliens? And science doesn't have an answer to that yet. After the Roswell incident, UFO sightings became more frequent. People made wild claims, saying they'd met aliens or even been abducted. These stories were mysterious and captivating. No wonder they gained traction. The government didn't help much since it was keeping its own secrets. Eventually, they admitted to hiding something, but it wasn't little green men from other planets. In 1995, the Air Force released a report explaining that the debris found on Brazel's ranch wasn't from a weather balloon, but from Project Mogul, a secret Cold War program that used balloons to detect missile launches of certain countries. As for the alien bodies people claim to have seen, they were crash test dummies used in experiments with ejection seats. In 2021, the US government released a brief report on UAPs, aka unexplained aerial phenomena, stating that they have found no evidence of aliens. At the same time, they acknowledged that many UAP sightings had been recorded since 2004, and those remained unexplained. According to the report, those sightings did not necessarily point to alien spacecraft. Some could be birds, debris like party balloons, secret military projects, or even new technology from other countries. In May 2022, Congress held a public hearing on UFOs, and high-ranking military officials testified there. They revealed that since 2021, 400 unexplained sightings had been documented, but none suggested extraterrestrial life. At the same time, there's more and more evidence hinting that Earth may not be the only place with life in the universe. Earth itself is 4.5 billion years old, and life emerged here around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. Life on Earth began fairly quickly, which means that the process of life forming wasn't overly difficult. And if life could begin easily on Earth, it's likely that it could also start on many other planets in the universe. The Milky Way galaxy alone contains 1 trillion planets, and there may be trillions more in the universe. Given these numbers, there is a lot of potential for life elsewhere. However, just because there's a possibility of life elsewhere doesn't necessarily mean that aliens have visited Earth. That's why SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence researchers, are focused on detecting signs of life elsewhere in the universe, not on studying UFOs. For a long time, most scientists dismissed the study of UFOs as pseudoscience. That's why many researchers interested in UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, stayed silent to avoid being seen as eccentric. But this has started to change. In June 2022, NASA created a team of scientific experts to search for the unknown in air and space. The researchers suggested using NASA's huge amount of space data to assist in the study of UAPs. The team also made it clear that studies of UAPs should focus on evidence and data, not speculation. Instead of simply collecting stories or relying on accidental sightings, the researchers used telescopes to capture footage of the sky. They gather this data and then analyze it with the help of artificial intelligence. They plan to add more observatories, and over 100 scientists are already involved. Astrobiologist Julia DeMarines suggests that some UAP sightings could be caused by unusual weather conditions. For instance, spacecraft launched near sunset can create strange effects. The gases expelled by spacecraft reflect only the light reaching the upper atmosphere at that time. And since the sunlight remains reflective for a long period, such sightings can seem unexplainable. UAPs might also be caused by light reflecting off communication satellites. But could UAPs really be alien spaceships? People often expect first contact with alien life to be dramatic, but the reality might be more subtle. Our first encounter with alien life may actually be discovering their technology. For example, we might find a piece of space debris that didn't originate on Earth, like spotting an empty plastic bag blowing through space. We'd know it didn't come from Earth, but we wouldn't know where it came from. Another possibility is that the aliens we might encounter may no longer exist. In 1961, astronomer Frank Drake developed the Drake equation, which estimates how many alien civilizations might be capable of sending signals. The equation considers factors like the rate at which stars form and the number of planets capable of supporting life in a Goldilocks zone, a habitable zone located at the right distance from a star for water to remain a liquid. However, one key factor in the equation is represented by L, which stands for the length of time technological civilizations produce detectable signs of their existence. Humanity has only been technologically advanced for a little over 100 years, in a universe that is nearly 14 billion years old. It means that the timing for civilizations to overlap might be rare. Many civilizations might have existed before us, and many may come after us, but the chance that we overlap with theirs is slim. Despite this, some scientists believe that it won't be long before we find definitive evidence of alien life. Did you know that reports of strange object sightings are quite common? The British Ministry of Defense reports at least 100 UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, sightings every year. That means there have been at least 2,400 reports in that country alone since the year 2000. A UAP is considered to be anything that cannot be immediately explained or identified. Usually, most reports find an explanation, such as atmospheric phenomena or known objects. However, the portion that remains unexplained is undoubtedly the most intriguing. Throughout history, there have been waves of sightings. One of the most well-known occurred in 1947, famously referred to as the flying saucer madness. That summer saw a flood of reports across the United States, with approximately 800 sightings that year alone. On that occasion, a local news story reported by a civilian pilot named Kenneth Arnold claimed to have seen disc-shaped objects traveling at speeds of around 1,200 miles per hour in a line of 9, passing over Mount Rainier. This was the first post-World War II sighting and is considered the report that marks the beginning of the modern UFO era. Returning to this century, there are at least 15 well-known cases. Let's examine some of the most striking examples. Number 1. The first case we'll look at has even sparked NASA's interest. It concerns the unexplained activity in a small town in the United Kingdom called Bonsall. residents have reported and documented numerous cases of unexplained activity, earning it the nickname UFO hotspot. Reports range from silver shapes to strange lights in the sky. In 2001, Sharon Rowlands accidentally filmed a house-sized disc with colored lights around it. The video caught NASA's attention because it resembled an object spotted during a 1996 space mission. However, the only conclusion NASA reached was that the object was metallic and didn't match any known commercial or military aircraft. Number 2, this case is from 2004 and concerns the Tinley Park lights in Illinois, United States. Residents reported inexplicable lights in the sky, which were also seen in neighboring cities like Chicago. Witnesses claimed to have seen a triangular pattern of red orbs hovering over the town. Other witnesses stated that the lights displayed a range of colors, from amber to greenish yellow. Skeptics who saw the lights firsthand dismissed them as an elaborate prank, but no definitive explanation was found. The lights were seen twice that year and remain a mystery to this day. Number 3. The next case involves some of the most viewed footage of sightings. The unexplained videos from 2004, 2014, and 2015 recorded by pilots of the USS Nimitz and USS Theodore Roosevelt. The fighter jets managed to capture these strange flying objects using their infrared tracking cameras. In 2021, the Pentagon officially confirmed the authenticity of these recordings. Fighter pilot Commander David Fravor of the Nimitz stated that the object had been appearing for 2 weeks when he was called to investigate the case. The object appeared at an altitude of 80,000 feet, descended rapidly to 20,000 feet, and then hovered. Fravor reported seeing an oval-shaped object approximately 10 feet, 3 meters long flying over the ocean. He and other pilots accompanying him stated that they were able to observe the object for about 5 minutes before it disappeared. It was Commander Chad Underwood, in a second wave of investigation and equipped with an infrared camera, who managed to capture the first video showing the object's erratic movements. Number 4. This case occurred in 2006 and is known as the O'Hare International Airport sighting in Chicago. Around 4:15 p.m., 12 United Airlines employees and several witnesses outside the airport saw an unidentified flying object resembling a flying saucer. The object was hovering over gate C-17. It was also seen by pilots, airline staff, and mechanics. Witnesses described it as completely silent and dark gray in color, adding that it clearly wasn't a cloud. A witness claimed that the object shot upwards at incredible speed, leaving a hole in the clouds that quickly closed. Despite numerous testimonies from people shocked by what they saw with their own eyes, authorities refused to pursue an investigation as the alleged craft did not appear on any radar. Number 5. This case was cataloged as the 2024 New Jersey drone sightings. Interestingly, the appearances occurred on both the east and west coasts of the United States multiple times. These large, unidentified drones were seen near residential areas, power plants, railways, highways, and critical infrastructure, such as ports, bridges, and police stations. Over 3,000 reports were collected, but investigators couldn't determine an explanation. The Department of Homeland Security stated that the drones were manned aircraft operating lawfully. At the same time, the federal government called for legislation and additional resources to address the drone activity. According to a legislative briefing, the drones were up to 6 feet, 1.8 meters in diameter, operated for 6 or 7 hours, often turned off their lights, acted in a coordinated manner, and evaded detection. They most certainly did not seem to be flown by hobbyists. To this day, the operators or points of origin remain unidentified, but official investigations attributed most of the drone sightings to manned aircraft or misidentifications caused by nighttime illusions. Some even suggested mass hysteria, recalling the notorious 1947 flying saucer madness. Which of these cases sent chills down your spine? Let us know in the comments. And if you're curious about the latest unidentified phenomena, don't miss our video on the FBI's recently published UFO documents. Any UFO enthusiast would tell you that the world is teeming with strange occurrences, sightings, government disclosures, and the sudden appearance of unknown craft. In 2021, the CIA declassified thousands of pages of UFO-related documents. And yet, modern-day mysteries are only the latest in a long history of unexplainable phenomena. And one of the most bizarre and chilling tales comes from Japan. It's the legend of the Utsuro-bune, a mysterious otherworldly vessel. This tale suggests that we might not be the first to toy with the idea of visitors from space. The Utsuro-bune arrived as early as 1803. It was described as a ship not of wood or sailcloth, but something alien. Professor Tanaka Kazuo of Gifu University, who has dedicated decades to the study of the Utsuro-bune legend, has pointed out that the mysterious ship of this tale resembles a flying saucer. And it was long before the modern concept of UFOs saw the light of day. So, on February 22nd, 1803, off the coast of Hitachi Province, Japan, the sea seemed to give birth to an enigma. Fishermen spotted a strange vessel. It was unlike anything they had seen before, so they felt pretty unnerved when they dragged it to shore. The craft was over 10 feet tall and nearly 18 feet wide, and it had an uncanny resemblance to a koro, a traditional Japanese incense burner. But it was made not of clay or wood, but strange, lacquered rosewood on its upper half and metal plates on the bottom. As the fishermen peered inside through glass windows, they saw that an unknown script adorned the walls. They could neither read nor understand those symbols. Inside, there were cakes, water, and bed sheets. It was creepy cargo for a vessel that defied logic. And then there was another mystery, a woman. She seemed to be around 20 years old, with skin as pale as porcelain. Her red hair was long and had strands of white. She was dressed in long, smooth garments of unknown material and spoke in a language no one recognized. But the strangest thing was the box she carried. It was a rectangular object that she clutched tightly. She didn't allow anyone to touch it, no matter how persistently they asked. Rumors spread like wildfire. Most people remained cautious. They feared that tampering with such a mystery might invoke dark forces beyond human understanding. So, they chose to let the sea take its prey. According to some sources, the woman was returned to her vessel and sent back into the ocean. Those who had found her were chilled by the encounter. They were afraid that something terrible had been set in motion. In the darkness of the night, one could almost hear whispers that the Utsuro-bune was not the first of its kind to drift ashore, nor would it be the last. Indeed, that Utsuro-bune was not a single isolated incident. Other accounts exist too, scattered across time and place. In 1698, a woman in a hollow ship was said to have appeared in Toyohashi. She was sent away when no one could understand her language. And in the decades that followed, sightings of Utsuro-bune and other strange vessels continued, each one described as eerily similar, with passengers who spoke no known language and carried strange objects. The legend continues to evolve. In 1977, 2 rare ink prints were discovered. They revealed new details and locations tied to the Utsuro-bune. It seems that this story, this riddle, has never quite been solved. Were those visitors from other worlds, or probably from other planets? Could those legends, with their uncanny similarities, be tied to the same truth? Were the Utsuro-bune vessels real, or were they the product of imagination? We don't have a certain answer yet. Imagine this. Long ago, in the depths of prehistory, aliens visited Earth. Yep, that's right. According to ancient astronaut believers, intelligent extraterrestrial beings made contact with humans thousands of years ago. And not only that, those alien visitors influenced the development of our cultures, religions, technologies, and maybe even our biology. All those divine beings in many ancient religions? Well, some say they were actually aliens with fancy tech, mistaken for deities by early humans. The pyramids, Stonehenge, Easter Island statues, all alien handiwork. At least that's what they claim. Ancient astronaut believers often claim that humans are either descendants or creations of those extraterrestrials. Aliens supposedly came down from the skies and kickstarted our civilization. To back up their theories, these believers point to so-called out-of-place artifacts. They take ancient artwork, legends, or even unusual archaeological finds and say, look, that's proof of alien contact. Mainstream historians and archaeologists, of course, have different perfectly reasonable explanations for all this stuff, but ancient astronaut enthusiasts aren't convinced. Instead, they argue that gaps in our historical records and the mysteries we can't explain must be the work of extraterrestrials. So, how about we hear them out? The most famous proponent of ancient astronauts was Erich von Däniken, the author of the pseudo-scientific book, Chariots of the Gods. He popularized the theory that many ancient deities were actually aliens. He even suggested that those extraterrestrials were light-skinned and Aryan in appearance. Uh-oh. At the same time, the notion of ancient aliens didn't start with von Daniken. It traces back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Early sci-fi novels like Edison's Conquest of Mars and the works of H.P. Lovecraft first toyed with the idea. The concept took off in the 1950s, gained even more traction during the space race in the 60s, and became a worldwide phenomenon. And even though many critics discredited von Daniken's work by the 70s, his influence was strong in fringe circles. Surprisingly, scientists today agree that the idea of ancient astronauts isn't impossible, but they add that it's definitely unnecessary. The so-called mysteries of history can all be explained through science, archaeology, and good old human ingenuity. No aliens required. But ancient astronaut believers often point to religious texts, suggesting that myths about gods descending from the heavens are actually tales of aliens arriving on Earth. Take, for example, the Sumerian myth of the Anunnaki. Some people interpret it as aliens coming to our planet to mine gold and creating humans as their slaves. In Hindu mythology, there are flying vehicles called vimanas, which believers say are actually ancient spaceships. Now let's finally figure it out. Did aliens visit ancient humans? Well, some people think so, and they believe the Bible might actually have proof. For example, in the Bible's book of Genesis, there's a story about the sons of God marrying the daughters of humans. Their kids were called the Nephilim giants who roamed the planet. Some Christians think these sons of God were just different families of Adam and Eve's kids. But others, as well as ancient astronaut theorists, argue that those were actually aliens who mated with humans, creating half-human, half-alien hybrids. The King James Version of the Bible even translates Nephilim as giants. In the Book of Enoch, which adds more detail to Genesis, it says that 200 angels, known as the Watchers, came to Earth, bred with humans, and taught them all sorts of things like metallurgy, magic, and astrology. Those angels, disobeying God, were eventually locked up, and God sent a flood, aka the story of Noah's Ark, to wipe out the Nephilim and the humans who had learned forbidden knowledge. Ancient astronaut believers think that this story is about aliens who were supposed to simply observe humans but broke the rules and got involved, and their offspring are the very Nephilim half-alien giants. Some also say that modern UFOs carry those fallen angels or their descendants still roaming our planet today. Let's move on. In the book of Ezekiel, the prophet described a wild vision of a huge, fiery cloud with strange creatures and wheels sparkling like gems. Those beings had 4 faces, wings, and shiny bronze legs. The wheels, with the help of which they moved, were full of eyes and could go in any direction without turning. Sounds pretty sci-fi, huh? Ancient astronaut theorists believe Ezekiel described a spaceship, possibly piloted by extraterrestrial beings. This idea has been floating around, pun intended, since the 1950s. Some theorists also claim that the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest that held the 10 Commandments, was some kind of advanced alien technology. The same goes for other biblical objects like the Urim and Thummim used for divine communication. In the 1960s, some authors suggested that many biblical events, including miracles, were really alien tech at work. Even more shockingly, Barry Downing, a Presbyterian minister, even argued that Jesus himself was an extraterrestrial. He pointed to certain verses where Jesus said, "I am from above." The minister believed that it could have been the proof that Jesus had been an alien visitor. Some proponents also suggested that the biblical idea of hell could actually be the description of the planet Venus. The theory goes that ancient aliens might have shown early humans photos of Venus's fiery, inhospitable surface, and that inspired the idea of hell. They also claim that God and Satan were alien beings who disagreed on whether humans should be given forbidden knowledge. Others compare this to the Greek myth of Prometheus, the hero who gave humans the knowledge of fire. Some even say that the original sin in the Bible, when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, was actually about alien offspring mixing with early humans. But hold on, there's even a claim that the Book of Invasions from Irish mythology, which talks about the arrival of the Tuatha De Danann, is actually about aliens arriving in Ireland. According to the legend, they came in dark clouds and caused the sun to disappear for 3 days. Ancient astronaut theorists think this could be a reference to spaceships with cloaking devices. Now, some people think that ancient artwork is full of clues that aliens visited Earth a long time ago. Let's dive deeper into the details. Ancient astronaut believers point to cave drawings, especially those from the Hopi and Zuni tribes, that show Kachina's certain spirit beings and say they might actually represent star people, which means extraterrestrials. They argue that similar drawings found around the world are proof that aliens visited many different ancient civilizations. There are also examples from places like Australia and Italy, drawings there look a lot like astronauts with dome-shaped helmets. Some people think those cave pictures show early humans encountering aliens wearing spacesuits. Another source of potential evidence comes from medieval and Renaissance paintings. Ancient astronaut fans claim that many artworks from this time show UFOs. For instance, in Madonna and Child with the Infant St. John, there's an odd object in the sky that people say looks like a flying saucer. You'll find more in other famous paintings like The Annunciation by Carlo Crivelli, Holy Trinity by Bonaventura Salimbeni, and Miracle of the Snow by Masolino da Panicale. However, experts, like Italian art historian Diego Cuoghi, argue that these objects aren't UFOs whatsoever. They symbolize religious ideas like angels, radiant clouds, and others. One of the most popular ancient astronaut claims is based on the Nazca lines in Peru. These huge ground drawings, depicting animals and geometric shapes, can only be fully seen from high above. Some think they were created according to instructions from aliens, or that the long lines might even have been runways for their spaceships. At the same time, archaeologists say there's no proof of this. They think the lines were actually used for ancient ceremonial purposes. One researcher even recreated a figure using just simple tools to show how they could have been made by the Nazca people themselves. But wait, there's more to consider. Some artifacts like the Saqqara bird from Egypt and the Quimbaya artifacts from Colombia, Ecuador, are said to look like modern planes or gliders. Ancient astronaut believers think these might have been models of alien spacecraft, even though mainstream archaeologists are sure that they're just stylized representations of birds and insects. Then how about sites like the Pyramids of Giza, Machu Picchu in Peru, Baalbek in Lebanon, Stonehenge in England, and the Moai statues on Easter Island? They often get linked to the idea of aliens. These structures are so massive and precisely built that humans of the time couldn't have made them without help from extraterrestrials. Mainstream archaeologists don't agree and say ancient people had the skills and manpower to move even huge stones. There have been experiments showing that large megaliths can be transported using simple ancient technologies. And still, some believers argue that the sudden rise of ancient Egypt's advanced civilization, and especially the construction of the pyramids and the Sphinx, was due to extraterrestrial influence. Now look at these massive Moai statues on Easter Island. They have puzzled people for a long time. Some ancient astronaut believers say there's no way humans could have moved such heavy structures without using alien technology. But in the 1980s, a group of researchers figured out a method that involved using ropes that made the statues walk across the landscape with the help of just a small team of people. But how will you explain this fact? Some ancient cultures, including the Egyptians and some Native Americans, used to artificially lengthen the skulls of their children. Ancient astronaut believers think they did this to mimic the appearance of extraterrestrials, whom that they might have seen as deities. Pharaoh Akhenaten and his family, who are often depicted with elongated heads and other unusual features, have also sparked theories of alien influence. Scientists believe that such features were probably caused by a genetic disorder due to inbreeding, which was common in royal families. Akhenaten was known for worshipping the sun god Aten, and some suggest his focus on the sun could be tied to a disease that sunlight helped relieve. Now let's get one thing straight. Mainstream scientists and archaeologists are not buying ancient astronaut theories. They call this whole thing pseudoscience, arguing that such wild claims often twist, misinterpret, or even outright fake evidence. The Pentagon has recently released a report, and according to the New York Times, they haven't found any evidence of aliens, spaceships, or visits from extraterrestrials. Last summer, a former U.S. intelligence officer named David Grush claimed at a congressional hearing that the U.S. might have been hiding secret programs for decades to detect and study aliens and their tech. He even said the U.S. had pieces of alien spaceships and even actual alien remains. However, the 63-page report put together by the US Department of Defense's Anomaly Resolution Office says that since the 1960s, people have been confusing American spy planes and drones with UFOs, or what they now call unidentified anomalous phenomena. Pentagon spokesperson Patrick Ryder said they were keeping an open mind, but found no proof of aliens or hidden government programs. He mentioned that most sightings were just normal objects or misidentifications. In February last year, after a few unidentified flying objects were shot down over the US and Canada, an interagency group was created to look into the whole UFO situation. At the time, John Kirby from the National Security Council noted that this phenomenon had been around for a long time, but previous administrations hadn't really tried to explain it. Now, why is the ancient astronaut theory so popular? The human brain needs an easy way to explain incomprehensible things, and blaming them on some extraterrestrial powers is a simple way to do it. The supporters of the theory often take fragments out of historical and cultural contexts, ignoring the broader meaning of those pieces. Plus, they assume that alien technologies must be similar to ours, and that aliens must be interested in the same things as humans, which would be very unlikely even if aliens existed. The ancient astronaut theory, despite its popularity in certain circles, is classified by the scientific community as pseudoscience, since it does not comply with the principles of the scientific method and is often based on distortion of facts or false analogies. At the same time, come to think of it, the universe is unimaginably huge. Does it really sound possible that in the vast, constantly expanding cosmos, we're the only intelligent, technologically advanced civilization? What do you think? Write your opinion in the comments.